So I'm going to ask Lauren to sit in for Tom, the Tom's position. So also, Tom Mahon can't be present tonight. And for those of you who like to get out in the woods, it's typically, we're getting close to the typical hunting seasons. Some seasons have already started, so what I'd suggest is if you're going to be in the woods, that you wear your orange and that you stay on the trails. Because if you stay on the trails, you're not likely to have any issues or any problems. So hunting is allowed on some of our properties, and if you go to merrimack.outdoors.org, you can see what's allowed and where it's allowed. So just be aware. Turkey season has started. Some birds and deer season starts at the end of the month with the youth deer hunting weekend on the 25th and 26th, and then we get right into it into November all the way to the early December. So just be aware. There should be notices on some of the kiosks coming out, I suspect, as well. So typically we try to do that. So anyone else have any other announcements for tonight? So, okay. We have no, well, anyone from the public care to comment before we get into the meeting? Don't see anyone. So no appointments. So we'll get right in with statutory advisory business with Public Service of New Hampshire and the Eagle substation expansion.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Sure. If you could come right up to the table. We can move an extra chair in there, and I ask that you introduce yourself so that the person who does our minutes based on the video can capture that as well as sign in. So.
Well, again, my name is Laura Games. I'm with Public Service of New Hampshire, and I'm here tonight with Deborah Zarda-Geyer from GZA Geoenvironmental, our environmental consultant, as well as Dana Lynch from Haight Engineering, our engineering consultant.
Okay.
And again, thank you for your time tonight. The reason we're here is because ISO New England, who is the nonprofit corporation that is tasked with ensuring the reliability of the transmission and distribution infrastructure for this area, has identified several infrastructure improvements that PSNH needs to make in order to meet projected load requirements for the Manchester, Nashua, and Merrimack areas, as well as a good portion of New Hampshire. These projects will also meet the required reliability standards as well for transmission infrastructure. So one of these improvements is actually identified on page 80, which is a 345 kV to 115 kV transformer substation at Eagle, which is in Merrimack. And so we put together a proposed site plan, and we'll be planned to go to the planning board. And there'll be some potential environmental impacts, mostly temporary, which is the reason why we have GZA on board. So with that, I'll turn it over to Deb and Dana.
I'll just add a little bit to what Laura had talked about in terms of the reliability goals. There's a specific goal actually that relates to southern New Hampshire and the Manchester and Merrimack area, and that is by 2017 some of the load requirements would have to be met. So that's not very far into the future. It's a pretty short timeline for this specific area of the state. This reliability plan is part of a much larger plan, and there's actually quite a bit of this type of work that's required throughout southern New Hampshire. So it's not just specific to this, one part of the state. There's a lot of other line and substation work that's also occurring, so it's pretty consistent across the board. There's also the site is the site of an existing substation that would have to be expanded to accommodate this new equipment. So it's just basically taking what's already there and expanding that footprint. So Dana will talk more specifically about that, but if there's any other questions as you go through, any of us can answer them.
Great. So before you start, can we get that mic moved a little bit closer?
Sure.
That way? So this meeting is recorded. It's broadcast on the government channel as well as available on streaming video. And you may have seen some of our video. I'm not sure if you ever took. So that's why we do that with the mics. So
thank you very much,
Go right.
Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is Dana Lynch. I'm with Height Engineering. Thank you for your providing me with some background information in preparation for this meeting. I have in my hands some plans that are slightly updated from what was originally submitted a few weeks back. If it-
Okay,
With your permission, I'll hand those out.
that'd be great.
More paper, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Trees are a crop. It's true, trees are a crop. Right.
The revision is somewhat minor, but at the same time, I wanted you to have the latest information. I brought an easel tonight, but it had a catastrophic failure as I took it out of the box. So I'm going to hold this up
Okay.
just to give you an orientation on the project.
Want us to hold
I was
it,
gonna say,
or
I
we
can hold it while you talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's like a boxing match, you know. So, as you're probably all familiar, the original Eagle Station shown down here in the lighter gray was constructed in 2012. It went through the permitting process in 2010 and 2011, I believe. Some of you probably sat in on those deliberations. It is located at the end of Star Drive in your industrial zone. And what we've done here basically is taken the original station and added to it that darker gray area. That's the expansion area. Basically designed in the same format that the original one was, as far as a pad preparation, including just a modest regrading and then addition of stone layers to basically give it a level appearance, but at the same time a level work area, and also to keep vegetation growth to a minimum within the location of the transformer. So we've graded the site accordingly. The change that we've made to the plans that may seem rather subtle is the addition of a distribution line that runs around the perimeter of the station. Currently, there's a line that runs around the perimeter of the station, but it runs right through where the proposed expansion is located. So we're basically taking and extending around the northerly perimeter of the Eagle expansion area. It will continue to have a 8-foot chain link fence around it, same security system, same access, no changes to the access. And very simply, what we've done with the drainage system is we have expanded the existing drainage system to accommodate this new area. Very simply, the drainage system collects whatever surface runoff migrates to the perimeter of the station. There's a very slight pitch from the center to the sides, brings it around in some drainage swales, and directs it to a detention basin. I could refer you to, I believe it's sheet 7 of the drawings, is a grading plan, overall, or site grading plan. And if you look carefully at that, you'll notice that we have some darker contour lines on there. That is the regraded swale around the perimeter of the expansion area. We've relocated an existing drainage culvert for the purposes of getting it away from the proposed propane tanks that will serve the control building for this expansion area. And we've modified that drainage culvert, pushed it away from the stations, but it still ties into the same swale network that, as I said before, brings all of the drainage around the perimeter to the, I'll call it the southwest corner. It's barely visible on this sheet, but if you look carefully in the southwest corner of the existing Eagle Station, there's an infiltration detention area there. That was originally designed to accommodate all of the flow increases and allows them to dissipate into the ground. And we've been able to design the system in the drainage containment so that we're not changing the detention basin characteristics as far as available freeboard. So in other words, that pond during a 50-year storm will fill up, but it will still leave a foot of freeboard even after we get this new expansion area constructed. So there's, for all practical purposes, no change in the drainage patterns either. And then lastly, we did have a meeting with DES regarding the alteration of terrain permit. We're going to be submitting a amendment, if you will, to that original permit. It's actually still in force to the state, although I think it expires in March of 2016. But we'll get a updated permit to reflect this expansion area and the new drainage system. We've gone over the parameters of that design. They're in agreement that we continue with this approach that we're proposing here. And basically, we're here because this project lies in the Aquifer Protection District, and we need your input and recommendation to the planning board, hopefully prior to our appearance before the planning board on the 21st of this month.
Great. So, everyone have a chance to look at it?
Yep.
Questions, comments?
So the perimeter line that you've added,
Yes.
is that an actual, are you gonna be digging in and putting, what is this? It's going in?
It'll be poles located around the perimeter. I don't know if you can make out the writing. It's very small, but there are, each pole is labeled DIST with a number after it. Those are distribution
So
poles.
this is gonna be an aerial run,
Yes, aerial run.
right? And it's way down below is it outside of the no disturb area of the wetlands?
There are no wetlands on
Well,
this.
but the stormwater protection,
The shoreline.
shoreline protection, yeah, water quality, was it?
They are located, let me just
Because that's what
check
that dashed line is right there, right? Is that the 250 line, or is that the 125?
Yeah, a portion of the project work will fall within the 250, and the pole relocations will fall between the 150-foot natural wood buffer and the 50-foot primary building setback line.
And those are just gonna be just in-ground poles, a class 5 type pole?
Those will be just wood pole structures, distribution, so it's smaller. It's typically what you see when you're driving around, not the big transmission lines. And there wouldn't be any additional grading or anything to support that. How many, I think is there 4?
One, two, three, four, five.
So there's 5 of those structures within the protected shoreland, then it cuts over
Sheet 6.
across
Yep.
the north side of the substation where there's 4 more structures.
Right. So those are all gonna be guide in now?
I don't know if they'll be
I
guided.
don't do the
I don't think so, if they're
distribution
tangent
doesn't-
structures.
yeah,
They
so
They don't need to be
need that
guides,
kind of
no.
support?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, these are poles that wouldn't be above 50 feet tall, so they would not require that.
You said some of your mitigation is temporary. What is the temporary work that's gonna have to be done for the construction?
Well, the temporary work will probably be the disturbance, if you will, of the construction equipment maneuvering around the site perimeter and getting the detention or the swale areas constructed and stabilized, and then the installation of the poles that we were just speaking of.
Mostly access. Along, actually along the line where the distribution and the transmission lines are located within the protected shoreline, that's actually a regularly used ATV trail. So it's already almost like a little highway going back and
Yeah.
forth. So there already really is pretty good access to these locations.
Yeah.
But that would be the nature of the disturbances getting in there to do the work. And then, the swale and the grading, that will be grassed. And so, you get back the vegetation afterwards. But during the grading, obviously, there'll be site disturbance.
The permanent disturbance is contained within the fence area.
How much of the slope stabilization mat?
We don't anticipate having to use a lot of it, mainly on some of the sections of the swales that are a little bit deeper, and perhaps around the perimeter of the detention basin that already exists, so as not to contaminate that, allow that to, any sediment to contaminate the bottom of that, because it does serve as an infiltration area.
Is this just a switchgear yard, or is there transformers and stuff down here too?
There's a transformer proposed, yeah. It's actually the square, here, if I can point to it, this one right here is
Yep.
a transformer that would go in as part of the project now. That other location is actually a planned location and for the future, for an additional transformer. But
So-
it's not required as part of the 2017 need.
Are these filled, or are they air core?
They're filled. They have secondary oil containment systems built in.
Okay. So what is, do we have any kind of mitigation? Are the swales gonna be able to contain that if they leak? Is there's gonna be,
Well, that they have secondary
Yeah.
containers.
Secondary containment.
They're
beneath
wholly
them
contained within
that
themselves.
would accommodate all of the liquid. It's consistent actually with the same type of transformers that are there now.
yeah, okay.
Good question.
Yeah, those are good questions.
Well, we wonder, you know.
That's what you're, that's what you're
Right.
for.
So the propane is used for control building,
Yes,
for heat?
yeah,
Yeah.
climate control within the control building.
Okay, and that's there now already?
Yeah, there are 2 tanks there now, and there'll be 2 more tanks for the second building that will be constructed.
Okay. Other comments? Questions? So when we exchanged email, I told you there's a number of things we like to look at. So CLD, the engineering firm, you know, checks the logistics and manages all that stuff. We're not engineers, at least not of that type anyways.
Sure.
So we let them manage that as long as it's, you know, meets the town standards and what they need. But we do look at the general construction and how water is managed, because the idea is to keep the water managed within the property as much as possible. Certainly not to increase any runoff that's not from the site anymore. We also look at snow and de-icing. I'm not sure what you're doing now to manage that in the winter. Do you just plow it since it's gravel anyways? Do you do any additional use of chemicals or anything like that?
There's no chemical
No, no.
use at all. They do
Okay.
plow it. They plow
Yeah.
the access road in,
Mhm.
and they generally keep the yard clear, but there's no chemical use.
Right.
Actually, I don't think it's allowed, isn't it, in your,
Well, we don't typically, we don't use herbicides on rights of way.
or any chemical treatment?
Yeah, yes.
But-
So, yeah, I was particularly thinking about, you know, de-icing and stuff like that too. So around the equipment, do you do anything to manage the snow around there?
You know, I'm not sure, I don't know that we would do anything unless we would need access.
Typically, the stations, and I've been out to the existing
you been in the
station
winter?
there many times in the winter, and there's
Snow.
snow everywhere. They're not
Yeah.
removing it,
Okay.
Yeah.
unless there was an actual, matter of fact, we did geotechnical borings out
Right.
here for this project in the winter.
Yes.
And that's right, remember we
The
were out
survey
there.
crew had to snowshoe
And we
in.
had to actually plow out the area because it was
Yeah.
completely full of snow.
So-
They don't remove the
It's
snow.
sporadically plowed, shall we say?
On
On
a-
an
you know,
as-needed
like
basis.
on a day-to-day basis, how much activity is down here? Is it not, it's just an empty
Hardly any.
switchgear?
No.
Once
there's-
it's built, you'd probably, once a month,
Yeah.
unless there's an emergency of
Yeah.
some kind, and it's
Doesn't
typically,
get much action.
no.
But even
no.
then, it's typical, just a, you know, regular passenger car, there's no trucks or large trucks or anything coming down here, nothing.
It's gated at the railroad crossing, 2
Right.
gates actually, so you have to have public service personnel there to allow you to get across the railroad crossing, so
Mhm.
nobody can drive in there just in a
Yeah,
passenger
So we're
car.
not gonna have any salt infiltration issues from the road or anything like that?
No,
No.
it's actually very far off of
Good.
the treated road.
So then, you know, we look at fertilizer use and things like that, which draws me to sheet 8 of your plans, which look a lot like canned sheets that projects get into.
Yep.
So, I heard that. It's tough
We
to
were
get
hoping
old,
if we
isn't it?
printed it small enough.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Mission accomplished.
So we, you know, we look at that and we look at mulch and stuff like that. So in the second column under mulching, C, item 3, it speaks to hay or straw use.
Yes.
Straw, not hay.
Okay.
Okay? I know straw can be a little more difficult to get at times, but it comes with less seed than hay does, even if seed has been processed. So that way we don't introduce new stuff to the area. Further down under D, temporary grass cover, it speaks to the application of fertilizer for temporary grass.
Mhm.
It speaks to 10-10-10. We really like to see low phosphate, slow release nitrogen. In this case, we're not talking about a nice landscaping area. We're looking to put something in order to keep runoff and stuff, in order to lose, soil and things like that. We would prefer, no phosphate, especially so close to the river. And what we've been asking folks to do lately is to follow the advice of the New Hampshire Cooperative, and that is to have your soil tested. You may not even need to utilize fertilizer. Your soil may have all the right amendments in it that will spawn the growth. So you may want to look at that. I know there are, because of the fact that there's a lot of traffic going along down the river and people have been utilizing that there's probably a lot of stuff ground in. But once you disturb all that stuff, all the good stuff underneath is still there and plants will grow. So that kind of logic all falls down through under permanent seeding, the next section down under letter E.
Yes.
Again, we'd prefer, especially so close to the river, no phosphates, because they end up in the river and they cause lots of blue and green algae and things like that. And Merrimack is a drinking water supply for further towns downstream of us.
Okay.
So, again, it talks about fertilizer use and application rates and all that sort of stuff. If you test your soil first, spend the few dollars, you may find you don't need it, especially in this situation, because you're looking to just put it back to a natural state. I don't.
A lot of boilerplate stuff.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
generate,
understood. Yeah.
with this
right.
input, we'll generate a note that specifically addresses that.
Yeah.
This is good, thank you.
Yeah. So, I also see the word hay in a few other places under letter F as well. So if you could kind of scan the document and scrub it.
You got it.
So, are you planning on constructing during the winter? Are you going to start right away?
I don't know if we have-
Actually, I believe that there's site preparation that they would like to do in the winter, but I don't know that the actual, that it'll be fully completed. I think it's gonna go, it's a significant, equipment
Right.
being brought in that happens on a schedule that doesn't always happen at the same time. So I think Hut had set into
Yeah, it might be do
June.
like in a phased
Alright.
manner.
I think it'll be about a 6-month timeline, so.
So you just have to watch your silt fencing and all that stuff and maintain it.
Oh, definitely.
You bet.
So,
As a matter of fact, GZA actually follows through the construction phase of the project, and so we were actually out there during construction, making sure that best management practices are used and maintained throughout the construction project.
okay, great. I think we pretty much covered all the notes that I had.
Yep, I'm good.
Anyone else have any other things?
You got mine.
I got yours, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I will draft a letter to the planning board, to the chair, speaking to the fact that I'm just going to reiterate the non-use of salt and de-icing. And I don't see that you have, I'll also reiterate our comments about fertilizer and no phosphate use and testing. Pretty standard stuff that we do, so. And then I'll also touch on the straw as opposed to hay, also normal
bet.
stuff that we do, so. Anything else?
Good.
Great,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you
for
very
coming in.
much.
Yep. So that takes us next to Tracy and GZA.
Hello, everybody.
Did we get everyone's name on the sign-in sheet?
Doesn't look like it.
Dana, before you leave, can I know you left a business card, but can the three of you sign my sign-in sheet?
I would be happy to. Just let me, they locked me in.
I left a card with the sign-in sheet. Is that sufficient, or would you like me to actually write it up?
Yeah, Yes, I understand. I passed both along, but for the record, it's good to have it on the sheet.
Casey, I can hold it for you.
We'll be fine.
Experienced now.
It's always when I don't bring one, that's when we need it,
Right.
but
Well,
that's okay.
We had one here for a long time.
You know what, are you gonna sit down? Cause it's not, this is taller.
Yeah. Look at that. She's a professional. Just waiting for these guys to clear out of your way. Yeah. Do a test. Well, I guess I can hand out some paperwork. Again, you know me, Tracy Tar with GZA Geoenvironmental. We're happy to help you with a comprehensive beaver management plan and to give you an update today. We'll go over a little history of the project, the field work we completed. We'll end with our recommendations, get your input, and then hopefully we can talk about project implementation, if everything sounds good. The first handout is a detailed summary of the field data. And what we've done is by location, these are your 35 priority areas that you gave us. We've totaled up the activity type in terms of what the problem was. We've rated the priority for management based on generally impacts to residents in nearby development. So a high priority has residents nearby that are being impacted or potentially impacted. Then we talk about management difficulty in terms of access. Often. Activity level this year, of course, activity level can change by year, but this year we were out there looking at sites, so we can give you some information on that. Then we'll talk about the model.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Cindy, if you'd like, you're welcome to grab. We have an extra copy. So,
I will get out of the way of this. And we can get into this more later too, but basically we talked about surrounding land use. We also queried rare species data from Natural Heritage to look at what potential impacts we might have with certain management options. As you know, the town has a host of rare species, including Blanding's turtles, that use beaver ponds. So we've looked at that for you. We've looked at previous management, and then our suggested management type for your consideration and whether we think immediate action is required or not. And as you requested, we came up with 10 priority sites. You can consider them 11, but they're basically 10. It actually came out quite neatly. There was 10 priorities, so that worked out nice. And then we can talk about what you might monitor, because priorities might change from year to year. So we'll get into that.
So just real quickly, this is kind of the database that we're gonna be working from.
This is a summary, so we have this all in GIS data layers that we can provide you, but we thought this tabular format would be handy. I know I use it as a quick reference, because what I'm gonna do is hand out this map in a small form. You're gonna have to get out your hand lens again. But the number on the plan corresponds with a number in there, and what we recommend in the future is keep that number the same. So we've noticed that as you track from year to year, the number might change, but let's keep it the same.
It's just an address.
And then, at least from a GIS perspective, it's just the one thing that stays the same that you can monitor over time in the database. So that, I'll just pass that around. And again, that's just to orient you. It's meant to be printed at this scale, but I didn't want to cover all your microphones with plans. And then I'll save, should I hand this out?
I've not really spoken much about the model, if you wanna.
Sure, I'll get
just
into,
tell,
yeah, I'll get into more detail on that. And then we're gonna go over some management recommendations. And we've come across some really nice installation guidelines, and what it does is gives you nice pictures and what you'd be getting yourself into, basically, with some of these. A lot of good details. I will pass that out. You don't have to all look at it right now, but that way we get all the paper sorting done.
lots of paper.
That's right. So what I thought we'd do, we can go through this presentation, answer your questions, but then we can really get into the model and the plans after that. So as you know, your town has had a really long and expensive background trying to battle beavers. Multiple departments have been affected. Thousands of dollars have been spent trying to deal with complaints and impacts on infrastructure. And you smartly decided that you needed a coordinated plan to cross
Can we get a mic
departments.
closer to her?
And rather than have kind of a knee-jerk reaction every time there's an issue, to have a plan to prevent impacts as well. And so we've put that plan together for you, for your input. But I just want to start a little bit with biology. I know some of you are familiar, but for those folks at home too, we really, to have a good plan, we have to consider the basic biology of beavers. They're going to be who they are, right? And so we have to acknowledge some of the inherent traits of them. They construct their own homes, lodges, out of sticks and muds for shelter. And what's another important feature is that they use dams to make their ponds. And they don't only just use the dams to make ponds, but actually to increase food sources. And so by damming up a pond, they actually make habitat for things like water lily and pickleweed. And those are plants that they're actually eating for most of the summer. They're completely herbivorous, so they're vegetarians, if you will. And they rely completely on plants. And so in the growing season, they can eat and depend highly on aquatic plants in the pond, but then they have to store food for the winter. And so they'll do, as you can see in here, food caches near the lodge, where they'll take their preferred food sources like aspen and willow and alder and other plants and store them literally for the winter, go under the ice in the winter and pull from that pile. And so food collection is a priority for them basically throughout the year. Then what also happens is those beaver dams are actually creating sub-ponds within a larger stream system. And so by making dams, they basically make sub-colonies. You'll see when you look at this model that a single stream will have many reaches of potential beaver territories. And so that's how they separate themselves. And water actually is also a means for transporting trees that they're using to make dams. And so pretty much everything they're doing is depending on the water. Beavers live in family groups called colonies. Sizes can range from 5 to 12 with a lot of variability, but you basically always have a breeding pair. And each year, a pair can have anywhere from 2 to 12, on average 4 young each year. So they'll have 1 litter a year. And then when they're about 2 to 3 years old, usually 2 years old, they become breeding adults and they get kicked out of their natal colony. And so every year you have beavers looking for other homes. And that family unit has a specific size because there's only so much food in the colony. It's a very specific family unit, and it's a very structured family unit. And by doing that, you have colonization to new ponds every year, and that's why you can have new impacts at new sites. But what's also interesting is that kits in their first year actually become active members of dam construction, and so you literally can have a dozen beaver working on a dam overnight, and that's why some folks can't quite win, right? Some of the impacts that we see in many towns, including Merrimack, dam construction results in upland loss, so you can get complaints from owners. Your town has a very specific problem with septic system failure, where yards are built right next to the stream, floods out the system, and those unfortunate folks get their septic back to them. Chronic culvert blocking from beaver dams, where your road crews are daily or often coming to clean out the culverts. And then you have your financial impact, which you have some numbers, but you have trapping numbers, beaver pipe installation, culvert screens, and then just plain maintenance. And probably maintenance is hard to calculate because you might have a crew going out for not a specific item, but cleaning pipes, as well as doing other duties. And then for areas where you don't get traction, you might end up with lawsuits. And so there's lots of costs from beaver impacts. But as a conservation commission, you know that beavers also have potential positive benefits. They create large marsh complexes utilized by rare turtles, including our state endangered Blanding's turtle. They enhance heron rookeries. They really support probably 75% of our native wildlife. They create wetlands for other species. So this plan seeks to maintain those important habitats and avoid unintentional impacts to rare species and other natural features. So the scope of our work, we completed a GIS database assessment for you, which is the output is that plan. We did a field assessment where we went out and categorized all the beaver activity use within those 35 priority areas. We're here to talk about recommendations, and then we're also here to help you develop a monitoring plan for the future. And this is one of your beaver ponds. That's behind the school. It's a very nice pond. So for the GIS database, what we did was we looked at your existing natural resource data that you have. You have lots of nice overlays, so we looked at that and used that as a starting point. Then we took existing granite data, including aerial photography, topography data, land cover, national wetland inventory, and hydrography data to develop your model. Other folks from the Fish and Wildlife Service have looked at high habitat suitability for beavers, and so we're able to use that as a starting point and tailor a model for this town. And what we looked at was stream length, land cover type, slope, water body connectivity to streams, and wetland connectivity to streams to develop that model. And each of those layers is assigned a point. And so, for instance, if you have a stream that's at least 0.8 kilometers attached to a large water body, that gets ranked higher in the wetland in the database, because we know beavers will more likely use those areas. If that wetland is also near appropriate land cover, say mixed forest, that also bumps it up in the model. And so all of these things were used to develop these three colors, which are easier to see on the plan than on the PowerPoint. And by using that model, we were able to map low, moderate, and high suitability areas. And we did this independent of your known problem areas. So your known problem areas had nothing to do with the development of the model. But most of the points actually overlapped, which we're going to talk about in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Part of the field assessment, like I said, we looked at those 35 areas, and we used a variety of methods to do that. We did it by foot, we did it by canoe, and we also, as you know, utilized a drone, which is this nice little device here. And basically, there's a lot of sensation around that. Really, all it's doing is it's taking pictures in the air. By state law, you have to have a visual of the device, and so we're never far from it. You're not allowed to go over homes. We didn't do that. Basically, use it over water bodies like your water supply areas to get some views where access was difficult, and that's where it was used primarily. Then we also use an iPad to both map beaver dams and food caches and other known items in the field, and we've overlapped that in your database. We'll look at that in a minute. And this map will be used for your management recommendations. And so over time, what you can do is, we've mapped 2014 points. If in 2015 there's new dams, you can keep adding data to that model and build it over time. And as you know, we also developed a site-specific data sheet for you, which I have if you'd like to see it, to map problem areas in the field. So we'll give that to you as a packet if you want to map new areas in the future. Of the 35 assessed areas, 34 were modeled as high habitat suitability. So there's a high correlation between areas mapped in red or pink, as you can see on this map, high habitat suitability with a potential problem area. One was modeled as moderate habitat suitability, but it had no activity this year. So we believe that that was accurately represented activity, at least this year. 13 areas of those were considered moderate to high priorities for management after we went through the data. 3 of these areas are considered really high priorities based on known landowner issues this year that need to be addressed relatively fast. Due to damage, clear damage to both town and private infrastructure. I'll have some photos of that in a second. And we're recommending 4 major devices which are commonly used. We looked in the literature to see what has high success rate, what's cost effective, what's relatively easy to maintain, and I'm proposing those for you. And those are to limit future maintenance, again, limit flooding and property damage, and also to promote coexistence with beavers. We want to promote items for you that reduce your need for trapping, essentially, and that protect important features like Blanding's turtles and important marsh complexes. Some of the general approaches to beaver conflicts in many areas, not just Merrimack, is trapping, both live trapping and basically killing the animal. Dam removal to try and reduce flooding. Culvert maintenance repeatedly over and over again. But then some items we want to talk to you today are formal water level control devices that are specifically designed for the site, and then grates or exclusion devices to keep beavers from plugging culverts. So once these devices are successful, the goal is to prevent as active maintenance. They have a little bit of maintenance annually, but you shouldn't have to go back every night to clear a plug culvert. That's the thought process. And these are locations in town where that gets plugged and the material gets taken out. Some poor options that we might discourage a little bit. Complete dam destruction without looking at other measures. Beavers are known to return that same night you break a dam and rebuild it within 24 hours. Again, you have 8 to 12 beaver on that mission. And then significant alteration of dams up to, say, you lower the water successfully by a foot, that might actually trigger dam construction by the beavers in another part of the pond and exacerbate your problem. And then trapping is a primary tool without looking at water control devices. We have to keep in mind that beavers disperse from other ponds annually, and so just relying on trapping doesn't solve the problem because beavers will migrate back to those areas. And then over-trapping can actually stimulate breeding at a younger age, which is common in other animals. And then items like live trapping sounds better, but what it often leads to is relocating a problem. Unless you really know about true beaver distribution, it doesn't really solve the problem. And it can actually result in injured animals. Beavers are highly territorial, so if you just move an adult beaver to an existing colony, that beaver is going to get beaten up. And so you don't actually help the individual beaver being trapped. So one thing we'll talk about today, some of these are trademark and have fun names like Beaver Deceiver. So basically what that is it's a fence for your culvert. And these odd shapes, especially the trapezoidal, exclude beaver from plugging the culvert but still allow water to go in. And what some people have actually designed too is to actually allow enough room for the beaver to get in the culvert so they don't cross above the road, but not enough where they could drag a tree or stick in. And so that avoids plugging. Here's another kind. It's called a double filter system where you have a fence at the inlet of the structure, and then you have another one with a pipe extension. This is a second option if a beaver deceiver isn't adequate, but it requires additional materials. It's more expensive to build. It's more complicated. If you get a flood, you have more places for trees to get lodged. It actually potentially exceeds state thresholds I'm going to talk about in a later slide for wetland permitting. It has more potential to affect the hydraulic capacity of your culvert, which we don't want to do. We want that culvert to take as much water as it can in a flood event. And maintenance can be higher because you're not just maintaining here, you're maintaining here. But that's something else you'll see in the literature. There's a friendly river otter on the structure for fun. Solutions for beaver dams are basically ways to control water where you want the water without allowing the beaver to flood above your accepted level. These are more successful when you can allow the pond to have a minimum of 4 feet of water so that it's not completely freezing, because again, they're spending most of the winter under the water, so they need to be swimming. So if you want to maintain an area as a beaver pond, you have to think about that minimum distance. Some of these are called flexible pond levelers. You'll see other fences. But the idea is that the inlet is protected by a round fence, which can be about 6 feet in diameter. It's not near the dam. This whole pipe's about 20 feet long. And so the water is coming in not where the beaver is wanting to dam. They want to dam where they're hearing water. And by keeping it underneath the water and protected in this fence, it's preventing them from basically damming it and allowing you to control the water here. So if this was here, it would control the water at that elevation. So this is a primary method in dams. And you'll see too, we're recommending this flexible pipe. It gives you more ability to put the pipe where you want it. Another type is called a Clemson pond leveler. This is a little more complicated. Literature suggests it's only effective in small watersheds. This width exceeds our state ratios for permitting, so it's not a preferred device. And it's not as versatile. It's pretty much stuck here. More expensive and complicated, so it's not one we're proposing, but it's another option. Just to give you an example of what you probably don't want to do, you don't want to stick a whole bunch of pipes in the culvert like this. It might effectively prevent damming, but you're not allowing your turtles and your fish to go through. You're reducing the ability of that culvert to take water during a flood, so we would not want to see this. We want to maintain the width of that existing culvert, ideally. Then we don't want hanging culverts. Hanging culverts are really bad for fish passage and turtles. And so our flexible pipe can help eliminate this because we can alter the elevation of that pipe, right, as the water level changes. Whether we change it or the beaver changes it, we can alter that pipe location. So that's handier. So in the upcoming slides, I'm going to talk about what we're proposing for your consideration. The things we've put into this plan, we want to choose structures that avoid limiting wildlife passage if we can, that avoid limiting culverts. We don't want to give our road crews any more work, right? Avoids excessive erosion or expensive or difficult to maintain. So those are all considerations. So here's when you might want to take out your plans if you want. Area 11, Hitchin Post Lane. I'll leave the best ones for last, but we start roughly in numerical order. And this is where you might want to look at your table too, for the colors. So this is one where we have a dam and conservation land, but it's located adjacent to potentially impacted residents. And so this is a site where it's in conservation land, but you have an active woodlot. So if the dam gets higher, it's potentially affecting those residents. So that's one where a flexible pond leveler could help you maintain the water level that you want. I can go slow or fast, but I wouldn't consider this one a high priority, but it's one where a water control device could help with that.
Mhm.
There's quite a large dam there now. Area 12, it was described as a detention pond. When you go there, it's basically a pleasant pond, but it has this two culvert structure here, and you can see where someone's put a grate to try to combat the plugging by beaver. This is a fun one where this is the outlet of the pond, but in the inlet you can see where the beavers, their tracks were in the mud, where they were maintaining the location of the dam. There was no water, so they didn't have to do any work on the upstream side, but on this side, they clearly were plugging the culvert. And so this is a case where one of those beaver deceivers or those fence-like options could help protect the inlet of that culvert. So that's a case where it's kind of a simple fix, I think. To
I
help.
heard recently those beaver have moved on. Or
Maybe
they're-
there was
or
active.
they haven't been seen.
Yeah. When I was there a month or two ago, there was tracks.
Yeah.
But they will move on, so you can reprioritize with the remaining areas if activity changes.
Mhm.
So Area 15 is on Continental Boulevard and Joey Road. And this is a case where we have two nearby activity centers with very high activity, multiple dams. You can see food piles. You can see damming by the culvert. And so this is one where flooding isn't quite in the yard, but if the dam grew bigger, it could potentially. So this dam might be a good option for a flexible pond leveler. Not the highest priority, but certainly something to watch.
So we actually have multiple dams there that are on private property as well.
Yeah, it's a neat system.
Not for some of the folks on
No,
Joey
no, no,
Road.
no,
But yes, you're right. There's some really long dams there too, 300, 400, 500 feet long dams.
And what's neat is I tried to take this down low so you can see how much water it's impounding.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about. You want to maintain water so it doesn't get so extreme that it threatens your road.
You're looking back at Joey Road right here, aren't you? That's all that tall grass that's behind you.
Yeah.
I'm looking upstream, if you will.
Yeah.
I think you're looking back, is that maybe one through there?
You and I clumped through there with Adam. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Good one. Feel like you're in wild America back there.
Yes.
So area 16 on Lyons Road. This is a case where there wasn't damming this year by the school, but there's clearly a grate and past activity. So if activity increased here, this would be a good case for a beaver deceiver. Help maintain that culvert. And then upstream, there's a pretty large dam that as it grows, again, it could potentially flood the maintained areas of the school. And it's also really high, so it's impounding a lot of water. That might be a case where you decide to maintain the water at a certain place. Area 17 Mast Road, this is more concerning because there's an active dam right on the edge of the road. So if this dam was suddenly released, it could potentially flood the road. It also has a nice pole sticking right in it, so this is a case where we pretty much recommend you want to get control of that water level. And then there's nearby culverts that have had past issues with damming, and so you might consider, once those were used again, those beaver deceiver devices. But the dam is of more concern right now. And even if beavers abandon it, if it was suddenly released, there'd be a lot of water right at the road.
And a perfect example of that is, the dam up at the middle school was abandoned, and at Mother's Day flood, when it let go, it took out a large section of Brewster Lake Road, that low spot in Brewster Lake Road.
Yeah.
And that's, you're talking hundreds of feet before it went from that dam, before it got to Brewster Lake Road. So,
And this only has a small ditch right next to it. So Area 22, Greens Pond Road, it's your water supply area. There's this grate here that's maintained a round fence. One of those 6-foot round areas would be an easy retrofit for this area, so you wouldn't have to keep coming back in and digging out the area. Then there's dams downstream which have prevented flow, and so if those became a concern later, again, those devices in the dam could help. But this seemed like more of a simple fix to help reduce management, put a round fence there. Help avoid flooding. Gorgeous, gorgeous ponds. Area 23, Natticook Road Extension, this was connected with those dams that we talked about earlier. Some pretty serious flooding this year. This is the inlet and that's the outlet, so you can see how much fun they're having there. Those beaver deceivers would help get the damming ability away from the culvert and be an easy fix. So this, I think, is a really good example of where it'd be helpful and avoid constant maintenance.
It's that trapezoid shape that gives you that advantage, right?
It is, so you don't want it so straight where it's easier for them to dam and then connect the dam to the banks farther out. And they basically want a dam generally where they feel running water or hear running water is the thought process. And so they can't quite get to all their sides. In their minds, they want a dam where they're getting that sensation, so it helps avoid that. So it's not zero maintenance, but it reduces drastically maintenance. And gets that damming away from your road. This was an interesting one. Area 3 in one of the Wildcat Falls conservation areas. It's a stormwater pond. This actually looks more muskrat related. It's a lot of cattails jammed into the outlet of the structure. But one of those beaver deceiver devices, probably with a smaller mesh, because muskrats are smaller, would help keep animals out of that structure. And although you have Blanding's turtles and rare species off to your side, we wouldn't classify this as ideal habitat, so there'd be no concern with putting that in that feature. This is one, as you know, one of your high priorities. Area 18, this is Mayflower Road coming off the side here. You have a sewer line that's a dam. You have, so it's a little too light in here to see it, but you have an inlet here that's constantly plugged. Then you have this overflow outlet that's constantly plugged. And then when you're looking from the sewer line, there's a dam, right, that's constantly maintained by beaver. And then you also have tree damage, just to add insult to injury, right in the existing yard. So there's a bunch of structures here that could help alleviate that problem. Flexible pond leveler in the dam. There's existing devices, but they're not really the most ideal devices to address the problem. They don't have the round fence that would help protect the inlet of them. A round fence would be critical to protecting this right here. And then a beaver deceiver, specifically sized for that structure, would be helpful. We just caution you might want to check with the Dam Bureau before you alter what is technically what they consider a dam, so checking with the Dam Bureau to make sure that was okay, but it would certainly help protect the infrastructure. Tree guards on residential trees would help protect further damage. And then this is one area where pre-trapping might be helpful. When beavers are used to a certain water level, that family group will want to maintain that water level. And so regardless of devices, they might do everything they can to get at that water level. So a lot of research recommends trapping before the devices are installed, but then once they're installed, you generally don't have to do trapping again because the beavers that emigrate in are used to that new water level. So it's just one thing to consider.
Now, what about the existing lodge? I mean, I know that the structures inside are based on the water level. Would that, if you have a returning colony, do they pick up any kind of clues as to where the water level should be based on the lodge?
Well, so far, the research is that if you do pre-trapping, most of the time, the new beavers accept the new water level.
Will they use the lodge, or will they build their own?
They might find it. It's hard to say with individual preferences, but they certainly might try. Are you getting at, should you destroy it?
No, I'm just
Yeah.
curious. I mean,
Yeah.
it's become quite large, as you saw. I mean, it used to be a standalone little island, and now it's connected back to the road. It's become, I mean, the land's become so large.
Well, what's interesting, a lot of these ponds, you can see those in aerial photographs very
Yeah.
clearly.
Well, that one you definitely can.
Yeah.
Another year or so, you could build a house on it.
In this.
It's that big.
He said it. No, but seriously, this is one area that probably deserves immediate action.
Yeah.
Lots of issues, important infrastructure being damaged, valid, obviously, residential complaints, and so this elevates to one of the higher priorities. Area 20 is connected to another one. Area 20 is off Cary Drive and Madison Drive. And Gage, of course, has personal experience over here and can speak to it. There's an existing dam. If it was repaired and beavers started getting back to this dam here where you see some old pipes, that would be a good case for a flexible pond leveler. It doesn't seem to be the primary dam this year, but it's certainly another constriction point that beavers might choose in the future. And then we'll look at another area. This is a really dense network. Rotational trapping might be necessary because of the septic issues in this site where houses are really close to the stream. And so any increase in water level really does impact people. So this might be one site where the town considers that or needs to look at that in the future. Mitchell Woods is connected to and seems to be the primary dam for this problem. I won't say who that is, you can guess. The dam. Very large dam, elevating water levels in this area in Mitchell Woods. Perfect classic example for a flexible pond leveler in this situation. And again, as part of this large complex, because it's affecting people financially in their properties, this might be one of two areas where you consider rotational trapping. But the nice thing is, when we look at the model, the town has lots of conservation properties where beaver activity and flooding don't impact anyone. And so there's lots of areas where these measures don't have to be considered. So you have a diversity of sites in town. We should go over permitting requirements real quick. I give the exact language in the law, so I don't paraphrase incorrectly, but basically you as the landowner, many of these are your properties, or if you're working with the landowner, you're able to destroy beaver dams, install beaver pipes, or beaver fences under your property under your supervision, as long as machinery doesn't enter the water. And you'll see in the guidance I gave you, a lot of this can be done by hand, so you don't need to have machinery enter the water. And you're not filling or dredging in or immediately adjacent to the surface water. So if you remove anything, you really got to get it out of jurisdiction. You do it in a gradual manner so you don't have a sudden release of erosion and sediment. And then this is key. Excuse me. You can have no more than 3 temporary pipes in your beaver dam, and the largest pipe can't be any more than 15 inches. And so that's why we've gone towards the flexible pond leveler, which generally has 10 or 12-inch pipes, as opposed to that Clemson pond leveler, which is a much larger pipe system. And it's less successful. And then also...
So who defines temporary? When big temporary structures, I mean...
They don't say in the law that you have to remove them, so I think that they're removable. They don't have a concrete foundation, things like that.
Right.
And you'll see when we look at the drawings, you're basically inserting this pipe in the middle of the dam. You're not placing soil, concrete, any permanent structures are easily removable. I think that's a distinction.
Also, when we get into dredging, are they talking about dredging to below the stream bed, or is it any of the mud or any whatever the beaver have built up? I mean, is it okay to remove that?
You can remove enough to get your pipe in, but you shouldn't be like taking a machine and removing all big
Right.
clumps of material. But we know from biology that that just stimulates them to build more dams, so we wouldn't recommend that even if you were allowed.
Well, I mean, because the Mitchell, the Madison Lane, I had a large circular screen with a pipe in it. Had a large screen with a pipe in it, and they packed around it with mud.
Well, I do joke that obviously when you put one of these features in, you're
Yeah.
gonna have a little bit of sediment.
Well, no, I mean
And-
they packed
Yeah.
around it with mud. So I mean, by the time I got it out of there, I wasn't dredging, but it was. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going downstream now, and it eventually washed way back down to the stream bed. But, so it's not really dredging, but I mean, that mud, if there wasn't any kind of flow there, it would have sat there.
Well,
Is
if you're not using a machine like an excavator,
Yeah.
and you're using care, which I'm sure you were, you're compliant with the law.
That's easy, thank you.
And a lot of the soil, they're literally taking mud from the wetland and putting it in the dam, so this is mud already in the wetland. It's not, like construction dirt from, so.
They can't hire contractors then, huh?
Use them for copy.
Obviously, they don't need to.
So I'm sure you wanna know about costs and benefits. Somebody has to pay for, right, these measures. Cost is gonna depend on whether you use existing labor, maybe you have town staff that don't mind installing these structures, or whether you hire someone, or whether you use retrofits or build them. There are specific companies that this is all they do. They put in beaver pipes and beaver structures, and so that's one option. You can also buy these structures and sub it out to general contractors who don't mind putting waders on. So these are different options you can weigh. The research suggests that these structures, the pond levelers, generally earn about the $1,300 range for a pipe. And they often recommend 2 per dam, so you might double that per dam. But again, if you want to lower your costs and use labor, that's one option. But you definitely don't want to scrimp on materials. The types of materials you use, how you install them, the care you use, it's going to affect the success of that pipe. So you don't want to scrimp so much that you lose, what you were trying to gain in the first place. Virginia's had a lot of problems with beaver, and in one paper, they were spending about $21,000 per site on preventative maintenance, road repairs, and beaver trapping. Following installation and monitoring of these sites, and this was one of those papers where they trapped prior but not after, and they saw beaver activity at all of these sites. After that, they were literally spending about $20 per site a year to clean out the structure, and that's it. So they had a savings of about $8 for every dollar they spent, and it was worth the money they invested. Some of the ongoing work, once we get your input, we'll talk about schedules and plans. We can talk about priorities. We can talk to you about how you might do a long-term monitoring plan, and then talk about implementation. And then we want to talk to you about how you might use the model. You can incorporate this into your existing JS system. You can track management costs over time. So for instance, one thing we can do is if you edit your work order system and add in an area code, so a number area code for each of those, you can easily track costs per site on this. It can be put into something like a SharePoint site or just done internally with your work order system with a small change. And then with this model, you can anticipate future problem areas. So example, undeveloped areas where new developments might be proposed, you can try to anticipate problems. But you can also use it to identify conservation priorities. So areas that you might be interested for conservation, if they have high habitat suitability, you might be reducing maintenance costs long-term for the town by protecting those areas, which you've done, I think, clearly by the middle school. All of those areas are certainly helping the town through preservation. And then as you work with residential subdivisions, if they have homeowners associations, you might recommend provisions for beaver management and addressing that so that the liability isn't put on the town as you look at future development. So that's just one use of the model. There's plenty of uses, but that's one. And then right now what we can do is we can look at details if you like and answer any questions.
Wow.
So we realized too, you might have to assimilate and think about it.
Yeah.
We originally, in the contract scope, the original schedule we had, we know you wanted to implement 10 sites this year,
Yeah.
which might be a little aggressive. But perhaps you think about those 2 main problem areas and looking at those as a first shot. And what your input on is that. And then what we can do is if you have preferences for what kind of labor you want to use or whether they're pre-built structures, we can engage potential contractors to cost estimates for you so you can do some more planning.
Those are some of the questions that Tracy and I have always talked about, and I'm going to get with Adam and get some of his preferences to what he wants to do. He's going to be obviously involved as a main component going forward. We've got our own properties to deal with, but some of these problem areas. As you guys remember, when we first started this, we talked to the water department, we talked to the town departments. So these areas are not just ours, they're across the town, and Adam's obviously gonna be very involved in that, so I'll get with him and get some preferences as to what he wants to do too.
Yeah, I think we were aggressive in our original plan, wanting to do things this year. I mean, it's a great goal, but we get tied up with process.
Yeah.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I think if we're gonna spend some money here, we're probably gonna have to do bids,
Right.
So that means that just takes time.
Yeah.
So how does that play into what we decided to do with you? I mean, realize this is gonna go into next year.
That's fine, we'll just monitor next year. It's no
Okay.
problem at all. Yep. No, it's definitely better to plan on the front side and do a good project rather than rush it, so.
Yeah. Okay, all right, just was curious if you had a kind of a deadline for your current contract or
Not
anything
at all,
like that.
no. We just, bill for work we've already done, and we'll put off monitoring until you're ready for construction.
Okay, all right.
And then give you time to think about it, and then we can develop more specific recommendations for you if you like, and work with you as you do that bid process.
Okay, so you've given us the summary. Do you have more words for all these properties?
More words or,
Description or anything like that? I'm
well,
not
what
sure.
we've done,
Yeah.
if you look at that area number, you
Yeah.
can find it on your plan, and the one I gave you has these red circles, so you don't have to hunt all over the plan.
Yeah.
And then these are difficult to read, I'm happy to drop off some full sizes, I can leave that one, it's definitely easy to read.
Mhm.
Gage has a PDF, I can send out PDFs to whoever needs it. And then what you do is you see that area, we've coded here the priorities.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the very last column, we've identified, based on the town's input as well, what we believe are the highest priorities. And so you can use that to digest what you think. Some of these are really simple, a round fence over structure, whereas those higher priorities with multiple structures might deserve a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm thinking Mayflower is gonna take some time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one that we need to deal with. I at least want us to get the planning process going this year, if we can't do anything else.
Sure.
So. Yeah, cause whatever, that's just gonna keep coming back to us.
Yes, it is.
And rightfully so.
Right, yeah,
You know,
there's no doubt.
So,
And we can
Okay.
give you time to review and come back in another meeting. Whatever works. So yeah, this is the fun part, this.
Yeah.
This, building a beaver deceiver, that's probably the thing that stands out. This publication came out of someone who really loves beaver, and so she wanted to give materials for how to implement these, and really give step-by-step instructions, gives materials, so that if, for instance, Adam wants to do basic cost estimates before he bids it out, you can have an idea of what materials you're gonna need. It gives amounts, also installation guidelines.
Yep.
And I like it says steps to avoid, which I think is helpful.
So,
Places where you don't wanna, cut corners, if you will.
so Beaver Deceiver International, you brought up, are they local?
There's an address out of Vermont, but it sounds like they'll go all over the place and you can probably order products. There is a company out of Massachusetts. And so we can get some names together for you that you can call and engage if you like.
Yeah, cause if we do a proposal, we put out an RFP or
Right.
what do we call it?
RFQ?
RFQ, yeah, RFQ. We'd like to direct that as opposed to, I mean, yes, we'll put it out to the general, it'll get done in a newspaper, but we'd like to target,
It's a specific,
yeah, it's a specific
Yeah.
thing, so it's not like people are gonna be searching everywhere, I don't think. Maybe Beaver Deceivers search the newspapers every week, I have no idea, but.
Yep.
But yeah, having a target list to say, hey, that we're interested in this kind of work getting done would be
Agreed.
great.
so I'll get that together for you.
Okay, yeah, cause I'm of the impression that I think our local public works folks are limited as to what they can do,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, it might be an unfair burden. It's a really specific work type.
it is, yeah. Yeah.
Especially probably with the more complicated ones.
And these deceivers are literally built in the water, at least in these instructions. It's not something you build and then put in the water,
Right,
because you're trying to get contact with the soil, so. Probably helpful to have someone that's familiar with it.
Saying it'd be one thing to have them, look, next year in the spring, we're gonna start planning and doing these versus, okay, you've got 3 weeks
Mm.
to put one of these in. So
So, then that was Adam's take, that he thinks initially, for the higher priority ones, they're probably gonna wanna just buy something, because they're not gonna have the time or the manpower to put them in right now,
Right.
so.
But him knowing what we're planning on doing will help him guide his budgeting for next year when it comes to maintenance and
Right.
stuff like that too. Or
Right.
maybe we go a year and see how it really performs, and then he can use those numbers and free some money up to do other things, because those folks, especially at Greens Pond, they're there all the time,
Yep.
every week or so,
Yeah.
cleaning that one out, so.
They gotta run that pipe all the way under the road, too.
Yes, too, yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
So. Yeah, so what I was thinking before the meeting is that we would receive everything you have.
Sure.
And my next meeting is actually pretty light agenda-wise.
Okay.
That we would spend the bulk of that meeting as a group here going through and deciding what we need to do.
Okay.
My question is do we think we need or want Tracy here for our next meeting, or do we think we have enough information between what we've gathered in presentations to make good decisions to go forward?
Maybe a meeting to get our thoughts together and then if we need Tracy in the future, the next one.
Okay.
But we have access to the PowerPoint and all that.
I did give it as a note pages, but I can save it over if you have anything. If you want the actual digital slides.
Just the information that's on
Okay.
there, because some of them had other things that
Yeah, so you do
I
have
have,
I
note sheets.
that's the PDF you sent me today?
Yes.
or
Yeah, I
the
gave
other
you
day?
everything. So it'd be like
Yeah.
this,
that
without my scroll.
that's perfect.
So part of your report will have a photo and a description for each area.
Mhm.
There's some areas where no maintenance is required, so I don't know if that's not really, there's no activity this year, there's no problems highlighted by the town. If you want a photo summary of each area, it's in here, but I could do it in more of a report format. I'm not sure if that's helpful, or if this
Right.
plus your chart's okay for now.
I think so.
I think for now, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So does anyone have any questions about any areas? How much time did you spend in Horse Hill? I was curious. Did you go into Horse Hill? I know there's quite a structure set up that's kind of been evolving closer to the Watson property, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at that.
Well, pretty much what we had budgeted, because it's townwide, is a couple hours in each problem area.
Yeah.
So if there wasn't ongoing activities, we didn't spend a day, for instance, mapping all the beaver dams.
Yeah, okay.
And we focused on areas that had obvious problems.
Understood, yep. That's kind of what I thought, but I figured I would ask, so.
Over by the White Pine Swamp in Horse Hill,
Mm-hmm.
there's one dam where there were pipes.
Yeah.
But now they're sticking straight up in the air.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
There's some things like that, and you can look at I'll leave this aerial for you, and you'll see if we GPS located it. But again, if there was an area that wasn't bothering anybody, we didn't spend time. So we
Yeah.
have a little time left in the budget to go back with the town on those problem areas to look at them more specifically.
So that second map's got all the actual areas that you went, I mean, this is obviously, we gave GZA a list of 31 areas, so they obviously, there's 35 now, so they obviously found some more that we didn't even know about, which is good. But those are all actual spots?
I'll leave this with you, so you'll see, we focused on dams, because those are definitely the problem causes. Where we saw food piles, we put that on there. Lodges, and then a few vernal pools, we noted potential pools. So I can leave that for you.
Yeah, so we can go over that in places that if we found a couple that we want to go hit.
We can always add them, that's a nice thing about this,
Right.
very easy to add.
So then this database is where? At your office?
It's on our server, but we thought when it's
Okay.
complete, we'll hand it over to you.
Right, and you've
What
had
format is it in?
It's in, the state, so
Okay.
it's compatible. It should be compatible with your system, as long as you're compatible with Granite and all that.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to check the box and make sure that we are compatible.
Sure, definitely,
I don't know if you could speak to Kyle Fox, our
definitely.
We did initially, and he sent you,
thought so.
yeah, he sent the,
We read his data, so we should be,
okay, all right.
he sent over some stuff, and he sent the,
it'd be highly unusual to use a different datum, for instance, so.
Yeah.
My pen migrated.
this is great, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. thanks for the opportunity to work on it. It's a very interesting project, to say the least.
Yeah.
What do you do? I worked on the beaver habitat model. Silly goose.
Yeah, when you came with the cooperative and you did the beaver thing, you got a lot of comments from other conservation commissions and interests and all that stuff.
Great.
Did any of those folks follow up with you at all? Just curious.
Somebody did, it was more on the iPad, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
definitely interest.
Yeah, what do you use on your iPad to map in the field out of curiosity?
It's actually really inexpensive, and I use it every day in the field now. It's a ICMT GIS program. It's $100.
I see him.
Get it like you would any application, and it instantly converts your iPad into a GIS, into a GPS.
So say ICM what?
ICMT GIS. And if that doesn't come up, I'm happy to go and look at my model. But we'll bring in, for instance, we could bring in the city layers, and when we're walking around, I could see if I was on a conservation property and avoid someone's yard and things like that. Real time, you could see where you are, so
Yeah.
it's very handy. On a big screen, not a little,
You
know.
tied that to an iPad that has a wireless, yeah, did you have it all local, or did your iPad have like a phone connection or something like that?
3G.
It has a connection, so it just
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, okay,
But really handy in navigating around.
yeah. Okay,
And so you could bring all this data
Yeah.
and put it in your iPad, and that's how I could navigate to, these areas that are a little far off and figure out where I was.
mhm.
Now I can't live without it.
Yeah, I was curious about it because the NRPC is asking us to do trail work and to gather information on trails, where we have benches, where we have all of those other kinds of things.
Very handy.
It might be kind of nice to, if we had that tool, you might be able to just,
Yeah, it's handy if you're trying to get a sense for things like timber trespass, roughly where you are on the property. It's really handy that way.
do you know what kind of connectivity to ArcGIS or the Esri tools this one has?
Well, what we
You
do
just save
is,
it as a shape file.
yeah,
just
there's-
straight, okay,
there's shape files, and you just email it to yourself and put it right in your system.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty seamless.
I know some of the lingo, but I don't know how it all works. So.
Yeah.
I can teach you that.
I'll disconnect here.
Anyone have anything else they want to cover while we have her?
Oh, do you want me to try to show you a drone video just for fun?
Yeah, sure.
If you have time. See if it runs.
Are we allowed to have fun?
Cool.
That's really
Look at
cool.
this. Oh, that's neat.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Is that Madison? Where is that?
This is, forgive me, I don't know the name, but it's one of the water supply.
Is that over
So I want to say it's upstream of
Green
10,
Pond?
it's upstream, yeah, but it's upstream of the area we talked about.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Blueberry Island.
Blueberry Island, yeah. Snaticook?
You can do snapshots with a drone or do this video.
It'd be more fun if it was really that high and it was the curve of the earth.
And it's low.
I think that's the curve of the outlets.
But anyway, you get the idea.
Yep.
Let's see. That's it, there's more, but I figure you have other business, right?
That's cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Business side of things, have invoices gotten processed? Are you aware of any issues with that? Anything I need to look into?
Oh, that one came through,
Yeah,
so I'm not sure why it took,
Yeah, that's
but
the
it did come through.
That's the one that ended up down in Virginia or something like that.
Yeah.
In your corporate office.
So you folks have the right address, so maybe inside.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
all right.
Sorry.
No, well, I wasn't aware of
Follow
that, but I
up on
was just curious.
Yeah.
So what, one of them got,
One of them got sent to the home office.
ah.
And where was it, from Missouri or?
Something like that.
Somewhere.
But you've submitted two, so the second one, do we,
You're all say you had the correct address, I'm not sure.
yeah, okay.
I'll blame an internal problem.
Just good about calling me if they're not getting paid.
All right.
They make me do it, I'm sorry.
It's, you know,
Sorry about that.
that's right. No one does this for free, so. Everyone have copies of what they want to have? Did we happen to steal a couple of extra copies for our missing members, just so when we discuss this next week?
We have everything but, this here, either this either.
That's all right. I think we can share that. Okay. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Just hand that over.
Forget the trees have already been stacked. Right, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Take care.
Okay. Definitely a lot of paper today. So, moving on our agenda under new business, we have the annual meeting of the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. That's coming up on November 1st. I think I've sent out web links. Maybe some of you even gotten emails. I got the official mailing that was received downstairs that talks about the various classes. We do have in our town budget $400 for seminars, education, and other things. So we certainly have money available to us. We do need to act sooner than later so the cost stays contained. Were any of you planning on going? Okay, I was also as well. So that's Mike and Matt and myself.
I'm trying to get that schedule to work.
Okay. All right. If you notice, they're doing something new this year. They're giving a reduced rate for teachers and students. Do we want to reach out to the schools and make them aware? Not necessarily offering to pay for students and stuff like that, but make them aware that this is going on, that there are education opportunities there.
Sure.
Should,
Just an email to,
Right.
out to, biology departments, and science departments and things like that. They'd be certainly willing to look at this.
okay. Is that something you would like to do? Or do
Sure,
you-
I can, yeah, I'm, both of the teachers or coaches that I know, so
Okay.
I can get the invitation to them.
Can you get it forwarded, once to Matt Chevanel as well, so it can
Sure.
come through the superintendent's office as well? That'd be great. So it's $50, I believe. It's a full day. Lunch is served. The beginning of the meeting is typically business related to the association. So there's a featured speaker. There is some business-related work. Votes need to be done if there are any votes, but I haven't heard of any votes necessary or changes in bylaws or anything, so I'm not aware of that. There's usually some elections of officers for the upcoming year or whatever. I believe there's an open position on the board if anyone has an interest in serving. So once you get past the business stuff, then it gets kind of into sessions and then lunch period and sessions in the afternoon. Sometimes there are field trips associated with it. At least there have been in the past. I'm not sure if they're set up this time because I haven't gone through the program yet myself. So I know we have someone who has expressed interest in joining the commission. Does it fit your schedule? So, just so that we're aware of that too. Not sure how quickly everything happens, but. So there's 3 of us already and potentially a 4th.
And if I'm free, I'll be there, but I can cover it through work, so it's not a big deal.
Oh, okay,
It'll be a last-minute thing based
Yeah.
on weather, so.
okay. Great. Any other questions or thoughts? Mike, there is a session you should take. That's the newcomers session.
Saw that, yeah.
All right, you'll get a great thick manual from them with lots of helpful information.
I'll you have to, like, you sign up ahead of time or just when you get there?
Yeah, so what you should do is you should go on the website, you know, even as early as tonight, and sign up, and check the box that says we'll send you a check, okay? And once you've done that, and you've checked that box, then you send me an email that says, Tim, I signed up online, and I'll gather those emails, and I'll feed them to Sue, and we will process a check to the Association of Conservation
And that's
Commissions.
at this, site, right here?
Yeah.
Online registration?
Yeah, the one that's in our agenda. I don't know if you've got when you look at the copy of the agenda, I gave you the right site to go to, so.
But as far as registering for certain classes, you don't have to. You just go to which one you like.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I thought one year they actually wanted you to express interest in what your preference was, so they can get an idea, but maybe not. I don't know.
They'll tell me that when I sign up, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
right, yeah. Yeah, so often people get there and change their mind and end up in a different session anyway, so. Or, you know, life happens, basically, you know, priorities change. So, but I've been very impressed. I've been 2 of the last 3 years and have found it very interesting and helpful. So, never mind the networking you can do and the people you can meet. You'll see or hear people's names, and then you can put a face to it. That sort of stuff as well, so. But this time you have to travel a little further. You have to go to Laconia, where they've all been happening in Concord in the past, so. Just another 20 minutes up the road, so. All right, so yeah, so once you sign up, send me an email and say, hey, Tim, I did it, okay?
Yep.
And what I'll probably end up doing is sending an email off to Nick, or whatever, and say, hey, the money's coming. 'Cause I don't think we've ever been able to process the money fast enough to get it there ahead of time, so. And I'll update you all at our next meeting where we're at with this, so. Okay, next thing, other business. So I've got a few things there. So invasive spraying. So last week, on Wednesday, Mike actually went out and sprayed. I believe I sent a short email to everyone, trying to give you an update. Prior to him spraying, I posted temporary signs up in the morning to let folks know that things were going on, and I removed them shortly after dark later that day. Mike and I were concerned about weather conditions. He actually prefers it to be a little damp. It helps get things going, but pouring rain doesn't do any good at all. He believes he got 90% of what he wanted to get done before the heavy rain came in. And he believes it only needs to be on the plant for a short period of time in order to be absorbed and do what it needs to do. So he thinks he did pretty well. He also took care of items at 8 Brookside Drive, the abutter who was having the severe problems. They worked out an arrangement and had a work order signed and that sort of. So that worked out well. She was very appreciative of Mike coming over and helping out there. Mike was concerned that some of the areas, because of the rain, we may have to touch back up, but we know we have to go back in anyways. That was so extensive. There's no way, even on a perfect condition day, that we would have gotten it all in one shot anyways. The permit came through, but the permit came with a stipulation at the end that required a 2-day notice to the state to say that you'd be spraying right near the water, which is what we needed the permit for. So Mike chose not to do some of the items that were right near the water. Some of the clumps that we saw when we went out, Mike, with the 2 streams and stuff like that, he just chose not to get in trouble or not to violate the permit, so he didn't do those areas. So
On that day, or he didn't?
yeah, so the permit, we didn't realize, Mike in his office, that the permit was processed through one of the offices in Massachusetts, because Bay State's a multi-state company. They didn't realize there'd be a 2-day notice period to the state to say, hey, if you got to do it, I'm going to do it on Wednesday, you have to let them know by Monday, that kind of a deal, 2 business days. So the permit came in, they all knew it was coming, the state said it was coming, and then all of a sudden that surprise to them arrived, So there are a few areas that didn't get done. So,
Are we beyond the window to try to do them this year, or are we?
well, the permit is good to the end of the year, but the foliage and other issues, we might be, unless we were to do it.
It's really starting to change.
Yeah.
So,
So Mike said that, maybe we could do something this week, but I'm not sure we want to do that. Knowing that we have to go back in anyways, we might want to just try and tackle everything again. So, so he didn't go near the woman who had some health issues. We didn't, he stayed within the bounds of what we wanted to do. The beekeeper, the gentleman who left his phone number, he was called to be made aware. And as far as I know, he acted on our call. So the other good thing is that the plants were beyond the flowering season. Flowers are clearly been gone for a while, so maybe the bees had already given up coming that way. The other thing is Gage found, noticed and poked, these herbicides really didn't pose a danger to bees anyway, so, which was good. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we need to wait till spring, in my opinion, and see what comes back.
so is there any updates that we can do, or, not updates, but any visual inspections we can do to see that it's, or we're just gonna see regular, the die-off, the fall die-off?
Yes,
Natural weight.
so Mike, when he was here before, and I think you'll notice it in the minutes, he was saying that it takes a week or two in order to see the effects of the herbicide in a normal situation. 2 weeks from now,
Yeah.
most of that's gonna be dead anyways.
Anyways, yeah, you're not gonna be able to tell.
As soon as we get a good frost, it's over.
It was 34 last night, so.
Right. Yeah.
I had to scrape my windshield this morning. Christmas is what, 12 weeks away, 11 weeks away? Surprise.
Yeah, so. I didn't ask Mike since we spoke shortly after he did the treatment, what, if he had any, change of thought or anything like that, so.
Okay.
So, I think let's see what we get, so. So, I believe I forwarded to all of you a grant letter that I wrote in support of a TAP grant for the town center trail work. Basically just something that states what the commission has been supporting in the past. The letter needs to go in with the grant application, and hopefully the town is able to receive grant funds in order to help continue that town center trail. So, if you trail stabilization project at Greater Woods. I spoke with Mike and have had email exchange with Mike. All the material was brought in a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and maybe you've seen it.
It's there.
Yeah. The hope was today that the equipment to do the brush hog work would make it in there, and that any excavators or other work machinery that needed to go in to use that material would be brought in, and that they would be executing that work this week. So that's the update I have for that. I know it's a little bit further into the season than we wanted, but as long as it gets done, right?
Yep.
He's been coordinating with Matt Chevanel, phone calls, phone messages, emails. So I've been copied on emails, so I'm aware of that. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that project. Mitchell Woods in the MVD well. As you know, we've had MVD in here a number of times talking about that well, the new well that they want to put in near Mitchell Woods. I was contacted by Jill at MVD about a process to follow in order to actually get things done. They would like an easement placed on the property, both our parcel as well as the one that's under the trustees, that speaks to what they can do and can't do and things like that. And so I directed them to have that easement information, directed them to Paul McCauley, our assistant town manager now, and he's also the finance director. He's taken the place of Eileen while she's out on leave. I directed them that way to work through all the legal stuff. I said, once you've got the legal stuff agreed to, and that our lawyer and your lawyer and everyone's happy, then it should come back through the commission to make a recommendation, and only the town council can sign off on the easement. So they can direct the town manager to actually sign it, so.
We did a forestry project in there quite a while ago. From the looks of the trees, probably 20+ years ago. If no one's walked back there, it's kind of odd looking. There's a bunch of trees all the same size, all the same height, and just clumps of them. So I don't know. Is that something we should bother trying to? I don't know, do some work in out there. I mean, there's actually quite a bit of property out there, and it's a large beaver pond out there now. It's a beautiful area. And if that's something that should we be looking into
So
some type of work out there, or?
I believe the last timber project was done in concert with trustees to do the trustee property as well, which is Watkins Forest, right?
Right.
It's Watkins Forest 2 or 1, I forget which one's 1, which one's 2. So we could ask our forester to take a look and tell us if he thinks that's appropriate, so.
Because it's grown in quite a bit. I mean, Adam had the town mow that access trail in there. It was, I go back there regularly to monitor that dam, so it's been mowed down. But that gate there is
Really tough.
in bad shape.
Yep.
And there's the entrance to that spot. Whether it's whether we want to advertise or not, there is a tree farm sign there, and you really can't see it from the road anymore because it's been so grown in. So I don't know if we want to. I mean, it's a neat area. There's no parking, obviously, but I don't know. I was walking back the other day, and it's like, well, this would be kind of a neat little spot. There's some good trails up there. There's a lot of trails up there, and there's a lot of space up there. There's similar to Greater Woods, there seems to be a lot of terrain involvement, so it's kind of an interesting area.
I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
Just needs to be driven. So someone has to decide to drive it.
Well, do we have to do that with? How does it work with the trustees on the Watkins side, on the other side of that stone wall?
I wasn't part of those things.
Yeah.
I would suspect that if it's something we wanted to do and kind of manage it, that they would just nod their head.
Okay.
Any revenue generated by forestry activities on their property goes to a special fund. That's why it's under the trustees. So we couldn't count on any of that revenue to offset trail building and stuff like that.
Not unless they wanted to spend it on there.
Correct. So.
Because the majority of that property is the Watkins side. The Mitchell Forest is really, I mean, there's not going to be any revenue from any timber generated on that side.
Right.
It's all, especially now the swamp, I mean, it's all just, small pine, scrub pine.
So, but I can't speak for them.
Yep.
If you'd like to get a hold of Bill and Jack and Chris, I believe are the 3 trustees.
Okay.
And you can maybe sit in on a meeting with them or just, do a phone call or whatever.
Yep.
So, see what they're thinking.
Okay.
Maybe one of them's been involved in the past project, so Chris maybe, or Jack maybe. I think they've been on long enough, so. Yeah, again, I'm not opposed to it, so.
Okay.
So I got through Simon, who was, since moved on, Simon Thompson, who was on our commission. He had put Chris Wells, the executive director of the Piscataqua Land Conservancy out of New Boston, in contact with me. And basically he writes, let me read it. So after 11 years at the Forest Society, I recently became the executive director of the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, a regional land trust based in New Boston that serves the communities just to the north and west of Merrimack, including the town of Bedford. I reached out to Simon today, now a former member of the Merrimack Conservation Commission, to inquire about whether PLC might be of assistance to Merrimack in achieving its land conservation objectives. Merrimack is one of several towns immediately south of PLC's current service area that still have significant natural resource lands. further on, he says, you know, if we have an interest, he would love to sit down with one or more of us to see what that interest might be and how we could work together. So the way I left things with Chris Wells was, yeah, I'm sure, I mean, I'm curious.
Yep.
And I'm sure other members would be curious. And I had said to him, I said, once I have this meeting tonight and I gauge some interest, maybe we can set up an informal meeting and just, run this a little bit further, because we certainly have land acquisition activities that we are interested in, or easement activities, and this may be one way to help us achieve those goals. So.
Okay.
So it kind of came out of the blue, so I had thought that I would have time this year to really get into it, but with my new position at work, I really don't. So is that something I can forward it to Chris and say, Matt or Gage or Mike or someone would like to sit down and kind of see where things are at? Maybe you can align it with the meeting on November 1st. I don't know if he's part of New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions in any way, but.
I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
having that contact and.
Yeah.
see,
Okay.
I reached out to several, conservancy organizations that just did not cover Merrimack.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like they do now, but it seems like they're open to maybe.
Maybe, yeah, right. That's the impression I get.
Okay.
So this is kind of an initial, let's just talk, right?
Great, yeah.
No commitments or anything like that at this point, so,
I'd like to sit down and
okay.
talk to him.
Does anyone else want to be part of that initial conversation?
Go with you.
Sure. I know Chris, so,
You do? Yeah?
yeah, well, we work together, so, we did.
All right. Great. All right. So, mind if I just forward email addresses and
Yeah.
throw it out there? You want me to use your town
Sure.
email?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want
Yeah,
your
yeah,
other email?
I'd love to be.
I'm
I'd
gonna
love to
try to,
I'm-
I've
I'm
been
not-
checking my town email
not
more.
take on-
I've been very good about it this month,
love to be
so we can
involved
keep
and-
going with it.
and not just go by and listening to you, being up the hill.
Okay. If we go beyond 3 people in the commission, we're starting to look at,
Well, you just, send out notice, and if people can go, great. If not,
Yeah.
we can keep it at bay easily.
so you want to be part of it too?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
it's interesting. So
Yeah.
whether I can do anything with it, I don't know.
I think it's a good option for us.
Yes. Yeah, kind of nice that Simon and whatever kind of made that contact, so
Mm.
I appreciated that. So I had told Simon in an email I appreciated it, so. All right, I will pass that along. I thought it was good news. Anyone else have any other items of discussion under this other business agenda item?
We've had a couple subcommittee meeting minutes. Okay. Sitting in on the Greater Woods Subcommittee, we had our first work day in a long time. We went out there a couple weeks ago and remade a couple of bridges and fixed a couple of bridges. Made a couple of catwalks for an area for Brickyard to make it a little bit more passable. We still have some more work to finish up out there, but good motivated group of guys. Went out there and got that stuff done. It went well and it was quick. Meetings have been pretty good. Directed. So it's gonna go well. We're gonna have some nice get that stuff done. We have a lot of, as you said, we have a very motivated group, which is good. So some of the trail construction and things that we want to go do, it's gonna be handled well.
Okay. Matt, anyone else?
I think, hadn't thought about it before this meeting, but, in hearing the presentation Tracy gave, and, being here for the past 3 years, we've been talking about mapping, and we just haven't done it. I think possibly acquiring one of these iPads with this software might be a good way for us to get this done that we've been talking about for the whole time I've been on the commission anyway. Is that something that we could do?
don't see why not. Yeah.
People collect the data too on GPS units, and I mean, you can download free apps on, like, I have a free app that does tracks and points. If people gave me the data, I could massage it into one unit that works well on GIS in my free time. So I'm on it all the time. So if we have the data through all these units, I would offer to work through it and make it into a manageable and usable form.
Do you want this? Because Trace, you know, she'll,
Yeah, I want that.
I'm a little hesitant to grab it now before it's done.
Right,
Because I don't want to have the data in two places, because if you
Yeah.
start updating it and she's updating it, then it's
Yeah.
never gonna, you know,
right,
but,
yeah.
she's been dealing with Kyle, directly to make sure that
Yeah.
we have some compatibility. But certainly we can, do you know Kyle? You met Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So-
once, but
Yeah, but it's nice thing, you know, we can certainly make sure that you're in that loop when that comes back.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we know the NRPC is doing trail mappings and stuff like that too, so we'd like to do something that keeps us in concert.
Whatever happened with, Jeff Foy? He volunteered to
I
help
don't,
us.
well, I put him in contact with Ryan at
Yeah.
NRPC, and I'm not sure how that all played out.
Okay.
Because I really like to take it all and make it into downloadable layers that people could use on their phone for free. So you could be out on a property looking at the layers on your phone,
That would be awesome.
integrated in your mapping system.
That's why I'm thinking
Yeah,
having a dedicated unit
to do it.
to do it, instead of, hey, what do you have? Let's use that. Oh, I didn't go on that trail. I went on every trail but that trail. If we're out there and we have subcommittees now, we have 3 subcommittees, we could just give it to them, give somebody the task of walk on every trail and just hit everything continuously, hit save. We have that file now and we can massage it how we like and actually make some maps maybe.
Come on.
Yeah.
And just get it done.
I have it for Horse Hill now. A volunteer did it. I forwarded that all to NRPC. Also got the GPS coordinates for all the poles, for all the trail markers, and started going out and GPSing all the benches and other interesting things that are out there. So, and I've just been feeding that to NRPC. What would be good though is for us as a commission to decide what is the format or what do we want our maps to all look like, so we get consistency across the town.
So all the information that NRPC is gathering, we're gonna obviously have access to it on the, as a map, or do we have access to the electronic data?
Well, there is an electronic link to it,
Yeah.
so you can get to it over the website.
So-
And it's all going into Esri tools, so it's all shape files and whatever else, so it could be given to Kyle, it could be given to anyone. So,
So a lot of the information you may be looking for are looking for may already be there.
yeah. I mean, Ryan at NRPC also went online and started pulling pieces as well that he could find. Mountain bikers and other websites have been gathering lots of data as well, so.
Because we had that whole list for Greater Woods, a couple of years ago. I mean, we've made a couple new trails since then, but that was, I don't know, I have no idea where that file ended up. I mean, we gave a copy of it to the police station, the fire station, and
I like Matt's idea though of having one
Yeah.
unit, because then we can also have some kind of, a data sheet or quantifier that goes with it as to, what kind of trail, like we could
Yep.
have,
Yeah.
you could have the classes associated with that, so we know
'Cause
what type of trail it is,
one of the,
and then what features we want to collect, so that it's all uniform.
Yeah,
That
because
would be
one-
up to date
one of
all
the-
the time.
Yeah.
one of the neat things about this is that they made GZA made a little check sheet
Yeah.
of things to look for and what to do. So when they're sitting, obviously we have a wildlife biologist who's going out looking at it. She could write it down. Not me.
Right.
So I have the check sheet. I'm like, oh yeah, that's here. Oh yeah, that's here. Oh no, that's not. And it,
Yeah.
Just helps you look at it. So I mean, that can all be digitized. I mean, it can be electronic.
Yeah, and that's what the NRPC, when Ryan was doing, it was they they were still negotiating what were the attributes they wanted to collect. That was where he was taking it. He wanted to be able to collect attributes and have that available online for people to see. So, yeah, it's a great subject. We just think we just have to decide what it is we're going to do, or what are we going to feed someone else and let them generate it, or are we going to try and generate ourselves?
I can, I'll get with Tracy and find out exactly what they have, so at least we can start looking from a compatibility point of view. If you feel you have some great free software that, you know, if we can get a multiple platform, that might be even easier, so we, you know, it's something like this, you can go walk around like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is accurate to 13 feet,
It's good enough for what we
you know?
need.
I think the trail will be okay. And that's a deviation of error, so I mean, it could be within a foot,
Right.
you know? So,
When you have clear look at
Right.
the sky, it's usually within a couple
Right.
of feet. We found that they're actually, the phones are now more accurate than a Garmin handheld unit in our testing at work, so your phone is more accurate than $150 GPS unit, so.
Probably more than my 12-year-old GPS unit, yeah. Except that one you can drop in the water and it's okay. But it was significantly more than $150 12 years ago. All right. I was contacted by an organization that was looking to do some projects and was interested in Wildcat Falls. And I forwarded that to Karen, our chair, and I think I copied you on it. So I'm hoping that's getting followed up with. So
Is that James?
I know. That's something else. That's true. James also
yeah, that's what
contacted.
so I
Right.
forwarded that to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you guys good?
I guess so.
Yeah, because he just wants to make sure that when he goes out and does it, that we're coming behind him, or someone's coming behind him to put up the markers, so people don't go back and reblaze the trees.
Right, so I got that to Karen. They're
Okay.
still up in the air with what they want to do for markers.
Okay. Do you know of another Wildcat meeting?
No, I haven't heard of any since the first one I couldn't make, so
Right.
I'm still out of the loop there.
Okay. We may have to help them.
And on that topic, though, I did get that sign
You did.
that
Okay.
we had made hung.
Oh, okay. Hung. Great. Did you take a picture of it?
I did.
Okay.
And Karen was there.
Yeah.
And she was taking pictures as well.
Okay.
By the gorge or the falls?
Yes. Yeah, and I removed the old sign,
Mm-hmm.
and I got it up, hopefully high enough to avoid any spray paint from the ground.
Okay.
Do we clear coat it a little bit?
No, but the finish that's on it, like it's a very shiny
Yeah.
sign, and the graphic is reflective. So I don't know if that makes it any.
Yeah.
But
No, we'll find out. I'm sure we'll find out.
But I mean, the old sign was so weather beaten. I mean, when I was taking it off, I was trying to remove the nails, and when I put my hammer in, the sign just disintegrated. So I was like, wow, that must have been there for a long time.
A very long time. Yeah, I've got pictures of it going back to the late 90s, I believe. Because I went searching through some of my old camera shots, because I used to live in that neighborhood, so.
And I mean, the new sign is like, I don't know, whatever gauge steel, but there's some thickness to that sign.
Mm-hmm.
The old one was just like conformed to the tree, and the tree was actually growing through the nails that were holding it to the. Should be
Okay.
there for a while.
Right, anything else? Okay, minutes. Minutes of August the 18th.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
one more thing. I forwarded you email from Parks and Rec. Matt, from Parks and Rec. Did you get that one?
Possibly.
About the paint, the stain?
I got it. I have
Okay,
it at my house.
okay.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
the scout, Benjamin Parker,
Mm-hmm.
who put the observation deck up off of BB Lane.
Yep.
He also got 3 gallons of water seal for that.
For the
Deck.
deck, yep.
So I'm planning, we have another meeting the 21st of this month for the Greater Woods Subcommittee. So I plan on trying to plan a day for a couple of us anyway to go out and apply it.
Mhm. Okay.
This is a great time of year to do
Yeah.
it, as long as it's not a windy day when the leaves and pine needles are falling.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Good, well, I hope you have success.
Yeah. And maybe if there's enough left over, we could get to the other deck. It's been there for a couple years and looks like it needs to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you to Benjamin for giving us something that we just happened to mention in a meeting about, doing the maintenance as well, or at least providing the materials for maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Much appreciated.
All right. All right, August the 18th. People have a chance to take a look at it. All right, I will move,
I did last week,
okay.
last meeting.
So I'm going to move the minutes as presented. I found no questions or issues with them.
I had one question. Betsy McNaughton?
Yeah.
Is that really how she spells her name, with the extra
Yes.
E?
In Betsy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I'm good then.
So is there a second in my motion?
Second.
Any further discussion on the 18th minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, that carries 5-0-0. All right, so now we go to the minutes of September 15th of one of our marathon meeting of the year. I will move those minutes with corrections.
Second.
All right, so seconded by Matt. Okay, page 2, top line, line number 1, right at the end, the sentence says, given the proximity to the brook, it could also end. It should be end, E-N, should become E-N-D, end up. Okay, so the online version, I didn't get to these until during my lunch break. So the online version shows some formatting issues, so hopefully I got the line numbers right. But line 14,
Page 3.
Page 3?
page 5, I'm sorry. So it's, the sentence actually starts at the end of line 13. This had 44 townhouse type units propped on it. Should be proposed, so that word propped should become proposed. That's on line 14, the word change. Okay, next I go to page 7. Right, so I had it noted as line 7, and obviously there's nothing on line 7. Again, the formatting on the online version was a little different, so. But yeah, I understand where it is. So on line 8, when asked about landscaping, Ms. Weiss spoke of mulch, shrubs, etc. And then it says she identified the area that would be, no, that's not where I wanted to go. Let me find the right words here. Right, so
Miss Weiss stated that her belief that power and water would be.
yeah, no, it's, again, the formatting was different on the online version, so where I mean, let me go, let's take us back to page 6, line 7. Either that or I copied the page wrong, so. So it says, Katie Weiss of Bedford Design Consultants, Inc. remarked she was before the commission earlier in the year. I think she remarked that Bedford Design Consultants was before the commission earlier in the year. I don't believe she was the actual representative at the time, so So in that, where it says remarked she was before, it should say remarked Bedford Design Consultants was before the commission. But did you see something on page 7?
It's just a grammatical thing, it's not, I just thought
Okay.
maybe that's what you were getting
Okay.
to.
Then still on page 6, line 35, middle, Mr. Weiss should be Ms. Weiss, so that should become an MS instead of an MR.
That.
That's the alteration of terrain, the
Yeah.
AOT. Okay. Right. So. Okay, so page 7, line 36. The sentence reads, "The site is predominantly wooded, has a high plateau area," and then the grade dives down into a ravine that dives, should be dives with a V. Get to the right page here. I'm looking to page. Yeah, the other one, the last one was just something I wasn't sure about the way it sounded, but I can't find it now. I should have used the printed copy, but I just didn't have it available to me today. So I think there's one more on the last page. No, it's not the last page then. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, so we're looking at page 12, line 42, under Commissioner comments, says Commissioner Perry spoke of the Learning to Live with Beaver meeting conducted the previous day at the town hall. I think you said the previous Friday at the town hall. Because you said this on at a Monday meeting, so.
Right.
So I believe line 42 at the end, day should be Friday. So. That's all I have. Anyone else have anything else? All right.
I'm good.
So all those in favor as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? That passes 4-0-1 with Lauren abstaining. That takes care of minutes. Any public comment? No public comment. Any commissioner comments? The only thing I have is that our agenda is very light for next meeting, which works well for discussing this GZA topic. If anyone else has anything they want to continue or move forward, I am quite busy in my new assignment, so I'm not moving the Chapter 111 stuff forward or forestry or property management plan stuff forward because I don't have the energy to do that right now. I shouldn't say energy, I just don't have the time. But if anyone wants to continue those things, great. If not, right now it appears, besides minutes and anything that pops up, GZA will be the bulk of our next meeting. So we can make some decisions about what we're going to do with beavers.
Yep.
And where we want to go. Specifically, I'd like to really make some hard decisions about Mayflower. I'd like to be thinking about not only what we're going to do there, but as in beaver deceivers or whatever else, but water levels. I know we've gone back and forth, we've looked at it multiple ways, but I think we have to decide on a water level. So if you need additional information to help make that decision and you don't think you have it, let me know. See see if we can contact Adam, whatever else you need to do. So,
Certainly, if there's any more information people want on the, the Beaver project itself, let me know, and I can get you that. Or certainly we can go out and walk some of these sites too, if you wanted to see them.
I mean,
Yeah.
historically, how many of those, people in that neighborhood that abut that pond, how many of them are dissatisfied with the water level? I mean, we know of one for sure. Do we want to lower it? Is this what we're going to discuss at the next meeting?
Yeah. Well, I think we had a public hearing before you became a member, I believe, on the property. We heard from quite a few people of the public, the neighbors, as to what they thought about the water level. And that's all captured in our minutes, and I could find those minutes if I haven't already sent them out. But yeah, if you want me to, I can take an action to send you those minutes.
Sure.
Or identify them, all right?
Yeah, or if I can go back and find them myself, find out what date it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I gotta do is, but I think I've probably noted that date somewhere, so, all right, so I can do that. And then you can read through, and you can probably catch the video on streaming video. Have you watched any of our meetings on streaming video?
Riveting.
Like, I've seen one or two, but.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, at least you can hear the comments directly in case you wanna hear them, okay? Okay, but, I mean, really, at that spot, we have drainage structures and stuff like that, and the water is up over the emergency
Yeah.
entrance. So, I don't think we have a much choice there, but we can talk about it, okay? So. Okay, that's all I have for commissioner comments. I'm ready.
Motion adjourned?
I think you beat him. So, moved by Matt, seconded by Lauren. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn passes 5-0 at 8:37 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Get your buttons on your mics if you like.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. I sent him a letter.
It's a grueling process.
You're coming, you might as well anyway, right?
I know, right? Yeah, I know.
You attend.